Hey, today we're going to talk about retirement as not an ending, but as an identity shift. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story because it took about 2 years in order for me to kind of be able to start to conceive as to what retirement was going to look like for me from a major CPG company to actually bringing it about and then what subsequently happened like in the 6 months after. So, this is going to be my story, and we're going to start with as I was preparing for retirement for 2 years prior to my exit, I really wanted to look at it as a transition in which I was going to go out on top. So I created a situation where I was leading a team, a new team, and we were building our stories because it was a e-commerce team in which we were so much different than how the rest of the company operated. And so part of that is we were kind of our own ecosystem in which we had to operate differently and we had to create our own identities because it was so different than going into stores and selling. It was selling online, which was very, very new at the time. So part of that was fun and exciting, and I got to help mold a really young, talented team into superstars as we were like building the business and making money for our CPG company and then building their own identities. And so that was super fun for me because that was so much of who I was starting to become as a coach. And then layering in hypnotherapy in the last 2 years kind of helped me with how people saw themselves and the limiting beliefs that may stop them from kind of going to that next level. So part of it was seeing that vision of like what and who I was going to develop into in the 2 years that I had been working, and then where that was going to take me as far as when I stopped working. So building this team was super exciting, but I also knew I wanted more because I wanted to do something for myself. And so last year in June, I ended up retiring from my CPG company and starting my own business. And part of it was like I had read books about retirement. I had talked about and talked to other people about their identity shifts. And I thought I was like totally prepared for it. And boy, little did I know that there were two things that were going to come up as far as the identity of who we say we are and how we're attached to productivity in our life and why that's important. And then the second part of it is the relationships because you spend so much time at work with the people that you're leading or connected to or creating something on that during that 8 to 10 hours a day, if not more, how that shifts when you're not a part of that life. So part of it was, being that high performer, being that structured life. And then when retirement hits, you kind of go, I have nothing to do. And so it was really interesting. And I knew that I was going to start my business. I just wasn't sure how quickly I was going to start it. But it really taught me something as far as to kind of hang out emotionally in that space of starting to redefine who I said I was, independent of what I produced, especially for a company, and then who I was and how I wanted to operate. So that was the first part of it. And then the second part of it was how my relationships changed. And then what I did to kind of start new relationships and how I started to kind of build my own support system. So, taking a look back on the last 6 months, it was a really interesting period because, as I said, I was already ready for it. I was like, I'm going to teach people and I'm going to help people on how to do this. And so I was going to be perfect at it. And that emotional side is really allowing yourself to be where you are at any given time is so super important. Retirement kind of creates that space to give you, like, who am I? Because you're someone that you've been in corporate world for maybe 20, 30 years. And now you're like, well, who am I not being defined by my structure or my level of productivity? So I had, as I said, I kind of thought that I could have that handled, and it's not a task. It's not a logistical kind of thing that you have to handle. check the box. It's more of an emotional thing where at different times you go through different emotions. And so sitting with that was a very interesting kind of place because your brain or your mind is wired to go like, what now? Oh, you shouldn't have retired, or different kinds of things as far as that come up of like why this change or this transition is not what I expected, nor was it going as well or as smoothly as I thought. And so part of that was using my own coaching method as far as to acknowledge some of the limiting beliefs or the thoughts that I had, and then understanding how much power I wanted to give them, and then sitting with them, first of all, sitting with them, and then going, well, how do I want this transition to be? Who do I want to be in this transition? And understanding that those limiting beliefs served a purpose in my life, yet they weren't where I wanted to be and who I was starting to become in this next chapter. So it's really about the awareness and then the coaching of like coaching yourself. And so that's one of the things that I do, not only in my corporate world, but also as far as I had clients outside my corporate world, in which I was helping them to kind of understand where they were, where they wanted to be, and what was stopping them from that process. And so that's a little bit about like kind of my style as a coach. And I realized I was going to be my best client for the last 6 months. And I went through a lot. There was, like I said, the identity piece, but then also the relationship piece. And so those were the things that were kind of the most important that came up, as well as some of the structure of like what habits I was choosing to do and what was the priority as far as like health and wellness and all that other kind of stuff. That was, like, kind of layered on beneath that, but the 2 were the identity and the relationships. So, today I wanna talk a little bit about that shift and understanding who I was going to be and understanding that it wasn't from a logistical standpoint, and it was identifying how I wanted to be in this next version of myself as a coach. So, yes, I retired in June. I have 6 months under my belt as far as retirement wise. And I kind of jumped into like, I'm going to help other people retire. And I believe in the structure that I'm building and that there's really a lot of value in asking yourself questions and allowing yourself to kind of feel what you need to feel in this transition. And I believe that I jumped into it and went, this is going to be my people, instead of staying true to the coaching style that I had, which was listening to people as to what stopped them from where they wanted to be, and then allowing them to get a style of self coaching as to who they want to be, how they want to be it, and then developing into that. So part of that was it changed my style. It changed my style of coaching. It changed my niche. And now I'm kind of going back to helping people through those transitions of whether it's a skill that you want to build, whether it's a transition like a retirement. It's all of those things as far as kind of rolled into one. And yet I still had to go through it myself. So understanding how to help other people now, it was that 6 months that really helped me figure out who I was, who I wanted to be, and what stopped me. And then employing my own techniques and my own diligence as to thought downloads, different things that you kind of employ to kind of get a realistic sense of where you are and allowing yourself to be wherever you need to be. And then from there, building that base of identity and support from others as far as relationship wise, and then going from there. And so I wanted to kind of take you on my journey because retirement has led me, I thought it was going to be one way, and I ended up doing some different things. And now I feel like I really have a good base and a good set to create what's next for me. So, welcome into my next chapter, which I hope will help you through your next chapter. And let's do this together. Thanks.